possible after the meeting. That's it.
Very good, thank you. And the first item on the agenda is,
Discussion item, review and possible revisions of the draft warrant article for the proposed downtown district and the associated draft design guidelines.
so this is the warrant, the revision to the code. And it's 6 pages. And then this is the proposed design guidelines. So before we get into that, we had a meeting on Monday, our regular planning board meeting. And after that meeting, it seemed like there was some confusion, some of which I think was a result of some of the things that I was saying. We're kind of a little bit all over the place on some of these things. So I sent an email to the town planner, and she sent it on at my request to the EDC and the selectmen. And it was basically that there were 5 items that I broke it down into. And that was that the draft downtown district warrant article and draft design guidelines are 2 documents that are available to the public, and that the planning board is preparing to open a public hearing on February 22nd. So those 2 documents are available to the public in what format, Karina or Sarah?
They are available on where you locate the agenda on the planning board website under agendas. If you launch that, you'll see the agenda for tonight and also a meeting packet. They are also on news and announcements on the planning board website specific to the public hearing. You'll see a title there for the downtown district warrant article.
And we also said is preparing to open a public hearing on February 22nd. So how are we preparing to properly open a public hearing? The newspaper articles, right?
Yes, newspaper articles. So we provided a legal ad to Gateway Media for publication in the local newspaper, as well as on the state's public notices website. And then we also posted the legal ad with the town clerk, and it's also posted on the bulletin board downstairs in the townhouse on the first floor when you come in the door on the right-hand side. And as well, it's posted at the library in a special place near the door since the library's closed. Ryan Donovan, the library director, said he would post it there as well.
Very good. So that step is well underway. And I stated that the planning board agreed to take the next step, which is to review, discuss, and possibly recommend revisions to the documents in a public meeting. That meeting is now scheduled for 7:30 on Thursday, February 11th. So here we are. That's good. Third item was the EDC will meet on Friday, which is tomorrow, and discuss how the process will proceed. Hopefully it'll be clearer after this meeting tonight. And the EDC will contact the BOS and ask them to opine on the same, how we should proceed. And then the next item was the planning board will manage the process. And we were just talking about the process, which is to manage, to properly advertise, open, and conduct the public hearings, and coordinating the revisions. And those revisions may come from within, which would be planning board members, board of selectmen members, EDC members, or the public, neighbors. And submitting the final drafts to the town administrator for inclusion in the next town meeting. So we've agreed to take that on. And then finally, it's the planning board may recommend revisions, and the EDC and the BOS will retain ownership of the documents and have final say on the contents. So this afternoon, actually this morning, I received a phone call from the town clerk. And then later this afternoon, I spoke with Lisa, our selectman, to discuss one thing, which was the timing of the town meeting. And I think at our Monday meeting, we felt, it was our impression that the date of the town meeting is still open. And there was a letter from the town moderator in which it, I believe, recommended that the warrant be closed on April 20th, no later than April 20th. So as a part of that conversation with the town clerk this morning and the selectman this afternoon, it appears that because the town meeting date is set in the town code, which I believe is the third Saturday in March every year, then the warrant has to be posted a week before that date, which means third Saturday this year is March 20th. Back up a week, you're down to the 13th. Back up a little bit more time to give town council an opportunity to review the warrant. And so we're looking at early March to close the warrant. That doesn't mean that the town meeting will still happen on March 20th, but the town moderator has the ability to extend the town meeting date, but apparently doesn't have the authority to change the date when the warrant is closed, because that's locked in with our date in the code of the town meeting. I don't know if that's too confusing, but basically, I think on Monday when we were talking, we thought we'd have a lot of time to work on this. And as it turns out, we have a whole lot less time to work on it. But there's not always lost, because there's other ways to get there. So tonight, we wanted to go through the new downtown district warrant article, which amends 174-2, 174-3, 174-8C2. So I'd like to, I'm going to open this up to see how we want to run the meeting and get the input. But if you look at, it's part 5, which should say the number 5, but it's part V. It's the last page. And it says 174-10.2 downtown district plan approval. And it's one paragraph. And the second sentence or third sentence in that paragraph says, the planning board may adopt design guidelines and apply them to major site plan approval applications, regardless of whether a special permit is required. So we were saying all along, I think, that you can't just do ask the town to approve the warrant article without showing the townspeople those design guidelines. Otherwise, they're voting on something that is wide open-ended. So I think we were saying you have to have both. We have to present both and discuss both at the public hearing. And I think we still can. But if that sentence is removed and this revision is silent relative to design guidelines, and we just go with the changes that are proposed for this new downtown district section of the code, without design guidelines, it still may be a fine approach to this, and it might be easier taking this in steps rather than the whole thing. Creating the downtown district certainly separates the downtown from the village business districts and creates its own district, which I think is what everybody was thinking was a clean way to approach the downtown. So we can decide to go through both documents tonight. We can decide to defer on the design guidelines and decide or recommend that just the downtown district zoning section go forward. So those are the different options we have. Either way, on February 22nd, we'll open the public hearing for the downtown district, and it will allow us to, based on the public hearing notice, to discuss both documents. Is that right, Karina?
Correct.
So why don't I open it up to the board and see how we want to, what we want to do tonight and how we want to do it. Mr. Mills, any suggestions?
I mean, I think if we just go through with the, not the district itself and see how we get with time. I think let's start with that one and not do the actual design guidelines. If we, that's where I'm at.
Mr. Stein?
There we go. I have a few questions. Just going back to the question of the closing of the warrant in early March. Couldn't we have a placeholder warrant article and then, referencing the moderator's letter that's posted on the town website in between, as long as we had the warrant, the article in the warrant, couldn't we make adjustments and, submit, the final version, so to speak, for printing on that April 20th date?
I think, Jesse, the April 20th date is out the window because the way it was explained to me, the warrant has to be printed and made available to the public 1 week before the posted town meeting. And because the town code says that the town meeting will be on the third Saturday of March, then the final warrant has to be posted for public review, printed and posted 1 week before that day. So that was the concern today that was brought to my attention, that April 20th is out the window.
Okay.
But
Thanks for clarifying that.
But going back to what you said, Jesse, when we open the public hearing on the 22nd, we'll have, if we do nothing tonight, we'll have these draft documents. And if we do nothing on the 22nd, and then somebody picks a day early in March and says, you gotta submit your final drafts of any warrant articles, we already have those. Those are what we have here tonight. Hopefully we'll improve on them. But if we don't do anything, we still have something. It's beyond a placeholder. It's got a lot more meat on the bone than a placeholder. But we could, that's like the worst case scenario, is to just submit what we have and let it flow, see what happens. But
okay.
Question is tonight, how we want to run this and what we want to do.
Okay. Well, I do have some other questions. Maybe I'll save the questions then. And just my concern with removal of the line and sticking with the the warrant article is that I don't, at that point, I don't understand how the design guidelines are legally, or, from any kind of municipal law standpoint, how they're incorporated into, developers' required action.
And they're not. It would be as if they don't exist. And then at a future date, if that's what the people want, we would refine the design guidelines and then do a new warrant article that would modify section, the downtown district section of the code, that would put that sentence back in. And by putting that sentence back in, we'd have the guidelines ready.
So you mean at a future town meeting?
Yeah. So instead of taking this as a creation of a district with set dimensions and allowed uses and all that stuff, and design guidelines this time around, we could just do the new district as it is right now, as is proposed, but no design guidelines.
So actually, that does make one of my questions relevant, which was, in lieu of design guidelines, would we not have rules and regulations?
It would, I think it would, and I'm wide open to having this clarified better by other board members. But it seems to me that it would be very similar to what we have now with the Village Business District, in that certain things are allowed by right and certain things are allowed by special permit, either through the planning board or the ZBA. And that's the way we've been operating for a couple of decades with the Village Business District, with a special permit. And there's examples of that approach being successful. The Walgreens in Fayetteville, and the building down by the train station used to be Ipanema. Those were approved by special permit in the Village Business District. So it would be very similar to what we have now, but we'd have a separate downtown district with its own dimensions and uses, different from the other village districts.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Okay, but if any of you think that I'm not interpreting this right, please tune in.
The only
this is
thing I
what-
don't understand is, maybe I'm mistaken. I guess we don't have rules and regs for Village Business District, like we do for like the solar overlay district.
It's what's in the code. That's right. There's no
Okay,
separate
thank you.
document. Yeah,
All right, I'm good. Thanks.
Mrs. Luttrell.
Well, just to clarify, this isn't an overlay district. This is creating a whole new district. And I would not be in favor of removing that line about design guidelines from the code, because there was concern of what things would look like downtown, and that's why those were put in. But there are design guidelines in the district already. The problem is, the way I read this, unless you go for a special permit, or unless the use requires a special permit, then that 174-10.1, which is the Village Business Special Permit Site Plan Review, those design guidelines wouldn't apply. So for by right uses, there would be no design guidelines for site plan review. And the design guidelines they don't go in the warrant. So we have until whenever town meeting is to put them together. And as I said, they don't have to be that complicated. We can just copy what's already in the Village Business if we want and put those in guidelines. So I would not be in favor of removing that. I think that would take away the planning board's authority to require certain design until a future town meeting. And I wouldn't recommend that.
So, okay, so on the 22nd, we would be talking about the downtown district code revision that talks about design guidelines. And so the people are going to say, well, what are they? So we would still have to show what we have now and keep the public hearing open, which we would anyways, I guess, right, to the town meeting, and continue to work on it so that when it comes time for the people to vote, with that sentence left in there, they'd have full benefit of seeing what the design guidelines look like.
Right.
That's the way you're recommending? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. You all set for now?
Yes.
Mrs. Houlihan?
Thank you. So I'm in agreement with Mrs. Luttrell that we should not remove that. I think it also helps to kind of take out the fuzziness of what we would want if we wanted to build down there. And I think that this could help developers and be a little bit more, I mean, let's keep it simple principle, as Mimi has suggested. So I would also say, let's keep it in there, talk about the warrant tonight and, waylay the design guidance for tonight.
For tonight? Okay. Mr. Mills?
Sorry, I just want to be clear that when I said before that I just want to go over the warrant article. I want to keep the design guidelines, but not, see how it goes tonight with our discussion if we get to it. I think, the meeting that's going to happen on Tuesday might have a lot of input and might change those design guidelines. So I don't want to put a lot of effort into it necessarily right now from that aspect. But I agree that the design guidelines would be a big part of this going forward. So just to clarify that. But for
Thank you.
tonight, I think we just start with the actual warrant article and see how far we get.
Okay. So why don't we open it? Sarah, I was under the impression that Julie and Lisa are there. So maybe we should see if they want to say anything at this point before we get into the text.
Sure. So Julie is not here, but Lisa and Marika are both here. So
As is Sam
Lisa.
Stivers
and Sam, yep.
and Timothy. Yep.
So if Lisa or Marika or Sam, if you'd like to speak, if you want to just raise your hand, I can allow you to talk, or I can just call on you one by one and allow you to talk. Don't see any hands.
Okay. So in the absence of any other input, for tonight, if we recommend changes, and I have a few that they're mostly, I don't know if we'd resolve them tonight, but some of them are questions that whoever owns these documents would have the authority to change. But for tonight, who is going to be keeping track of recommended changes?
I can.
Sarah, you can do that at the same time as facilitate. It's not a problem. Otherwise, I can.
Either way, would you like me to share the document so that everybody can see it at the same time?
Yeah.
Okay.
But as far as capturing the comments from the board and the public and other members, I don't want to, at the end of the meeting, oh, I thought you were taking notes. Oh, no, I thought you were, yeah.
Right, of course.
So what the board just witnessed was our fabulous planning department fighting over who would take on this extra work.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh,
Karina,
right.
you can, and I'll,
Yeah, and it
For
all
sure.
depends if you want to take them and draft them on the fly into the document, or I can just take the notes and we can then refine them
Sure.
tomorrow. I'll just
That's
take the
Well,
notes.
I don't know if we can, some of the things, I'm not sure if we can change because you may have to do some research to find out find out what the better or the right way is. So,
I'll take hand notes.
yeah. And then, I don't know, maybe if we just highlight those areas or the words that are, being questioned or recommended. If no one else wants to go first, I will.
okay.
So bed and breakfast, the version I have says with not more than 4 guests rooms. Wouldn't it be guest rooms?
Yes. Dawn, I have a question. As you go through these, will everybody, if anyone has a comment on that paragraph, everybody speak to it and then we move to the next one? Or do you want to go through the whole thing and then the next person? I think we should go step by step, like everybody looks at bed and breakfast if anybody has a comment there.
Okay, yeah, that's a good idea because some of my questions might get cleaned up by people a lot smarter than me. All right, so the guests rooms is to be changed to guest rooms.
Got it.
Then the next one, it says co-work center. And it says, or longer lease periods in the second line. But before that, it says offering short-term, monthly or longer lease periods. Is the term lease associated with longer periods, or does it only does it only apply to leases as opposed to a rental periods? I mean, a short, if somebody goes in there for a week, are they going to sign a lease or are they just going to sign some kind of a rental agreement? It's just that the word lease implies something solid like a lease and excludes rental.
Well, I know from my perspective that you can have monthly leases or you can have 1-year lease, tenancy at wills, that kind of thing. So it's always better to be clearer, in my opinion. So if it's lease or rent, that's what it should say. So we don't have to interpret it later.
So let's make a note on that and see what, any objections to that? Move on. The facade, the exterior side of a building. And I'm sure this can get cleared up easily by, when I read through and we talk about the word facade, in some cases could be meant as the front of the building, or it also could mean front, if it's a square building, the front, the side, the back. I didn't look it up in the dictionary what facade, the definition is. I probably should have, but,
I
We
got
did,
it right here.
we looked at it earlier today.
and that's the
says-
definition.
Yeah, it says the face of a building, especially the principal front that looks onto a street or open space.
Yeah, there's a couple of different definitions depending on where you look. And Sarah and I were kind of hashing this out this afternoon. And it seems like facade is not only the front. And a lot of times people think it's just the front and the definition says it, like Jesse just said, but it's more like the exterior treatment to the walls of the building. It's like an exterior treatment. Because you can have a facade on a building on a corner lot, and the facade could be on both sides, not just the front.
But we could have a developer, a proponent come in and say, well, this just talks about the side of the building, not the front. I just think we can do a better job with that, and clear it up so there's no misunderstanding. Does it include just the front? Does it include the front, the side, and the back? So on.
I think the way they wrote it here, because we read it, so the exterior side of the building, they're talking about versus interior side. I think it was, that, you know, who knows? I don't know.
Then it should say sides.
Yeah, that's right. It definitely needs clarification.
I think we should say the exterior sides or face of a building. Or something like that.
Yeah, it's
The thing you read, Jesse, was something about the street, facing the street.
facing the
Yes.
street, the sides that are facing the street.
I'll read it again. The face of a building, especially the principal front that looks onto a street or open space. That's what's in the dictionary.
Would that exclude the sides of the building?
It
Let's,
sort of does, yeah.
Let's move on and make that something for the EDC to agree to, or we'll work with them on it. The next one is the microbrewery. And the word, the microbrewery may act as a wholesaler for beer of its own production for offsite consumption. So I don't know that much about microbreweries, but I thought that some of them make like a gallon or a quart. I think they're called growlers. And it's not, then they'll sell them to you and you can take them home, but it's not wholesale. It's a retail sale. This definition reduces it down to just wholesale, a wholesaler. But I think microbreweries, like I said, they'll sell, I think they're called growlers, as a retail sale.
Well, it says that. It says, in addition to selling beer at retail on the premises of microbrewery. Oh, so that's on the premises. So assuming that you have to drink it there, is that how you interpret that?
I think so. On-site consumption.
Well, it just says, in addition to selling beer at retail on the premises. I mean, it doesn't say you have to drink it there.
Yeah, okay. All right, I missed that.
Well, it does in the preceding sentence, though. It says,
Well, that's
and
in
a
the tap room.
for on-site consumption. And then
But
it
that's
says,
for
in
the tap
addition
room.
to selling
That's a
beer at
comma.
retail.
So the tap room is completely separate and allows on-site consumption. Is that what we're saying?
Sounds like it. Where though, I think we want more clarification though, is if you're selling as a wholesaler, like kegs of beer, and you have like 18 wheelers backing up on Main Street, I don't think that's something we want as a wholesaler, right? Or we want clarification if that's what we're gonna allow. It's one thing if they're selling, cases of beer, cans or bottles or whatever, or even growlers. It's another if massive kegs are going out in trucks to get distributed around the state, New England, wherever.
Yeah. You got that one, Karina?
Yep. What if large quantities of the product are essentially put on trucks and taken from that location to distribute elsewhere?
Right.
Something like that. What if kegs are being sold in larger quantities and they're the actual distributor
Right.
location?
You don't want to be a distribution hub.
Well, the author of this document, I'm not sure who it was, but somewhere they got that definition. Maybe there's another one out there that can address our concerns. Yeah, Marnie, just tune in. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make a comment that there were multiple authors. So EDC, Mimi, myself, many of the selectmen were involved and edited it. We all had an opportunity to do so. So I don't think there's a singular author. Judy was the one who summarized all of the feedback. But I do think there was like a significant effort that was put forward to try to draw alliance. And maybe Marika might be able to comment on if there's I know there's a document that actually shows what the rationale was for changing it and what the discussion was. So Marika might actually have that available to her for like what that was intended to mean. But I know at the time it made sense to me.
Were you drinking?
I plead the fifth.
Well, okay. One of the things that I discussed with Lisa today was, and it's a good thing that we're doing this, because if this gets passed, the planning board has to understand it. We have to have an understanding of these definitions and the whole document. So if there's areas there that where I'm questioning one thing and somebody else is thinking that it means something else, then that's an area that we should take a look at and get it cleaned up, because, you know, you snap your fingers and this becomes the new part of the code, and we get a proponent in here and we're sitting there as the board, as we do with other site plans, and try to apply these definitions and these rules. We should be able to understand them.
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. I appreciate that.
Move on.
So just to clarify, the gist on the microbrewery is the concern with, heavy loading activities to distribute anything they sell from there that impacts traffic.
Yeah, I think so.
Large
Okay.
scale wholesale.
Large
It could-
scale wholesale.
It could also impact hours of operation if their trucks are rolling in there at 2:00 in the morning to get the stuff, or 5:00 in the morning.
Okay.
I don't have too many more. It's so go over to
Before you move on, can I just add something about mixed use development?
yeah.
That definition. In reading through this, the second sentence says the ground floor facing the street shall be used only for permitted non-residential uses. Is it the understanding that that means like allowed, used only for allowed non-residential uses? Permitted in the meaning not like they've already been permitted, but that they're, I hate to use the term allowed by right, but allowed non-residential uses?
So you're saying there might be a residential use that predates zoning and therefore they never got a permit.
Yeah, I don't know. Just, it was a development that includes both residential uses and non-residential uses within a single structure. The ground floor facing the street shall be used only for permitted non-residential uses. I think, doesn't that refer to the list of uses that you don't need a special permit for? They're kind of allowed by right.
That's what I've taken it to mean.
Yeah, I think so, because under the permitted uses it defines, well, it says permitted uses under this section A and B.
Right, so that goes hand in hand. And then the other part of that is the definition of gross floor area of the structure. Is the intent to have the same criteria? So whoever formulated this definition for mixed use, we have a clear definition for gross floor area. It's actually under floor area, gross under 172-2, 174-2. Does that gross floor area apply here as well. They want to use the same term. Because it has, it doesn't include storage areas. If you don't have clear square footage of where your use is, it can be 80% aggregate of the total square footage. So is the intent that gross floor area means that same thing as we have defined already? That's all. I just wanted to make sure that was this clear. Because
I think it would,
okay,
I mean, if that term is defined in zoning, would have to use that term. So we
Okay.
should be happy with that definition. in
Yeah.
my-
So also on the mixed use though, when it says total gross floor area occupied by non-residential uses shall be at least 10% of the gross floor area of the structure. Well, there's no maximum. So you could technically say, all right, we'll have a barber shop on the first floor and all the other area of the building could be residential. And that would be mixed use. I think we want to put a max of, only 50% of the structure can be, or something like that. Like, right?
I think towards the end of the article, if I'm not mistaken, it references something in the criteria towards the end.
I understand that, but I think we've all been through enough of these meetings with different interpretations from
Yeah,
proponents that they could say this, hey, well, it doesn't say I can't do this.
right. The definition is a powerful place that we always tend to end up back at.
So I think there should be a limit on the residential.
That question was brought up with Judy, and I can't remember why this number was so low. Because if you're trying to promote business downtown, why are you only having at least 10% and then the rest is residential? Because then isn't it a residential bylaw?
Yeah, but technically it would be mixed use if you just put a barber shop on the first floor and then made the rest of it residential, right?
Right. Yeah, I agree with you. I don't know why that number is so low.
Well, I mean, I get the at least, but I think that we need a maximum of what the floor plan or the gross square footage could be. Like if we only allow 3-story buildings, right? Then no more than 2/3 of the building could be residential above. Assuming that the whole first floor then is businesses.
Well, would there be an advantage to going below 10%? You have a 5 foot by 5 foot, I don't know, little shop. Is there an advantage to having 95%, 99% of the structure be allowed for residential? Is I hear you, Mimi, about, well, then it's residential, but is there a benefit to that? Maybe we should go back and ask, or try to find out where this 10% came from and why there isn't a maximum. Although I think further on, it does have some percentages.
So what this is saying is that the first floor can only be non-residential in mixed use. So mixed use is the ground floor facing the street shall be used only for permitted. non-residential uses. Well, I don't understand the facing the street part. The ground floor facing the street.
Yeah, so the 10% for the non-residential has to be, it has to be at least 10% of the building, and it has to be on the ground floor facing the street.
Oh, is that for access?
Well, it's the village look with the storefronts on the sidewalk. But like the behind it can be residential. Like the other 90% of the first floor can be residential.
Oh, so the ground floor facing the street shall be used only for permitted non-residential uses.
Yeah.
Okay, I was thinking like ground floor facing the street. The ground floor at some point always faces the street. Okay, but you're saying the part facing the street can only be used for permitted non-residential. And then the total gross floor area occupied of the whole structure has to be at least 10%. The total non-residential use. Okay. It's still, see how tough it is to interpret it, and we all look at these very often, so. This one's a tough one. Okay, so on this one,
So,
we want to find out where the 10%.
Serena?
Yeah,
So I just opened, it was a draft that was shared by us. It was the combined copy of joint meeting notes, and there were
Yep.
several comments about this. The low bar of 10% for commercial to the total structural area can be limiting. For instance, existing commercial retail on Main Street has housed very tiny shops that in total would be pressed to meet a 10% bar. So there is multiple, DK Hill, Sam had comments on this mixed use. He wanted to make sure that there was no more than one residential unit on the ground floor occupying more than 30%. So many people made different changes. I can circulate this again. This was circulated on November 9th, but it helps to go through some of the details as to what went through. And then my guess is it was a recorded meeting because it was a joint meeting and we talked through and hashed this all out. So I wonder if that would be a useful tool too. I don't have time to review it, but I don't know if that would help like Marika or the EDC when they have the conversation back with the Board of Selectmen, that these are the things that we just need clarity on.
okay, we do have that compiled spreadsheet of comments. It's probably still on the Dropbox as well. And we can revisit that if Marika is listening. Would she like to speak to this, or should we just do that after, during daytime hours? We can follow up with her.
Either way,
Okay,
this has got to be the most important new definition.
Particularly if we have to enforce it. So I completely understand having comfort with all of these.
So I was going to end up my comments over in the back. It's part 4.
nothing in between, Don?
No, not right now. Part 4, F7. Minimum facade build out percent lot width. So it says 50 to 80 feet of frontage. That's clear. But then it says over 81-100 feet of frontage. And then the next one says 100 feet or more of frontage. So you've got 100 feet at 70% on number 3 and 100 feet at 75% in 4. So shouldn't number 3 be I don't know, 81 to 100, and then number 4 say over 100
Yeah,
Or-
more than
or-
100.
or over 80-100, and for number 3, and over 100 in number 4.
Got it.
And then down below there, at the bottom, H2,
Mhm.
I was trying to figure this out, and maybe it's simple, but the maximum, it's number 2, the maximum distance between street level entrances shall be 35 feet unless waived by the planning board. So is the distance between street level entrances the same building? Or do you have to be 35 feet from the next door building street entrance?
I had that same question. One building, or does it mean to adjacent building as well? What was that? What did it mean?
And if you've got a building on one side and another building on the other side, and both of their entrances are on your left and right, you might not have 35 feet to put your entrance. That's got to get cleared up. Not sure why it's there even. Usually the entrance is dictated by the use within the building. And then we go to the last page, and it's number 4 on the top. Oh, first of all, yeah, let's go back to. Yeah, the last page. No, second to the last. All right, let's go with the page you got. All right. See where it says Part V and Part VI? The rest of the document uses numbers.
Right, it should say part in a numeral 5.
No, it should say the number 5. Yeah, numeral 5. Yes.
Numeral 5, yep, and then where it
And
says the Roman numeral, it should say the number 6.
Yeah.
Same thing.
So,
Yep.
and then let's go back just above I. Yeah, you're right there. And it says here, the number 4, last words, it says, but not for automobile use. And that has to do with the setback. You can increase it for things like a patio and things like that, but not for automobile use. And I thought maybe the better word would be vehicle, because we know that there are proponents out there that would say, well, I'm going to park motorcycles there or trucks. So probably the word vehicle instead of automobile. And then down in number 5, right after the acronym SHOPSI, says the planning board may adopt a guidance document interpreting the Chapter 40B guidelines as they apply to development under this section. And I can tell you, after going through the Park Central issue, which is still in court, I have no idea what's meant by a guidance document to interpreting the Chapter 40B guidelines. Unless we replace that with the planning board may hire a lawyer, because to me, there's so many interpretations of Chapter 40B. I just don't know what that means. Is there such a, does somebody think that there's actually a document, a guidance document interpreting chapter 40B? Maybe there is, I'm not aware of it. But if there
Not
isn't,
aware.
I have no idea what that means, and I would recommend that anything the planning board would be doing to interpret chapter 40B could be a waste of time, because the 40B process is under the ZBA, and we've been we have to be aware of it and tuned into all the 40Bs as we have, but a guidance document interpreting it, I have no idea what that is.
So it's your
That's-
opinion that should be stricken?
Well, yes, unless somebody can explain that such a thing exists and what purpose it would serve to us.
I like the independent counsel piece personally, Don.
And even then it wouldn't be resolved. I mean, it would just. That's all I had on the code. If we want to, any other members have others, we can go through them like we just did.
If nobody else does, I have some comments, if you don't mind.
I had a couple too.
Okay.
Let's go with Jesse first.
Okay. So let's see, it's under Part 4, amend Article Roman numeral 3, use regulations, by adding the following new section: downtown district, and then C, permitted uses by special permit from the planning board are as follows. And it says, number 6, multifamily housing up to 12 units. And I was having a hard time reconciling 12 units against the dimension, the maximum dimensions for a building in this district. And I don't know if this is a discussion we want to have now, but at some point, someone who does know the answer to that can explain, what we're talking about in terms of the minimum size of a unit, quote unquote, which would have to have a kitchen in order to be in order to get a use and occupancy permit, among other requirements. So Don, I'll leave that up to you as to whether or not you want to delve into that now, or just sort of have it as food for thought.
No, Jesse, I agree. And even looking beyond that at some of the dimensions, like the minimum lot size shall be 5,000 square feet. I think that's in here somewhere. And then they talk about the maximum height shall be 45 feet, I think. But then it says the maximum height of the first floor, the minimum height is 12 feet, the maximum height is 18 feet. So if you have a maximum height of the building of 45 feet, and the first floor is 18 feet, and you're allowed up to, and you want to try to, either the second floor has got a very high ceiling, or you've got the second and third floor with tiny ceilings. So I agree. I think that each of these should be calculated out to see how it would work in the extreme cases, like the smallest lot with the the reduced front, the minimum frontage or the maximum frontage, and just to see if any of these things conflict with each other, so that they're not possible.
Right.
And that's gonna take a little bit of work.
So exactly. I don't think we're going to solve it tonight. So I don't see 12 units, in the biggest possible building given these dimensions. But just moving on from that, a little bit further down, section D, uses by special permit from the zoning board of appeals are as follows: accessory apartment and conversion of a one-family house in existence for 2 years or longer to a two-family dwelling So this is something that's been discussed in SHOPSI quite a bit, and a lot recently since we did the housing production plan. And there's been discussion with Tom Mercoulier, who's on the master plan committee. You know, we might want to look at this as an opportunity to have accessory apartment and or conversion of a 1 unit to a 2 unit as by right, or something that is less onerous than obtaining a special permit from the ZBA. Because I'm aware of at least one case where the ZBA did not grant the permit. I don't know why, but it might be, you know, from the perspective of diversity of housing stock, it's an opportunity to loosen things up a little bit for accessory apartment or the conversion of a 1 unit to a 2 unit. And I have a third, or do you want to stop and discuss that?
I got a question, because I didn't back check this, or I don't know if anyone else did, but elsewhere in the code, beyond the downtown district, aren't all accessory apartments approved by the ZBA? By
That's what I
special
was thinking
permit?
too, Don. I believe so.
So,
Yeah,
and-
I think
and-
these are just copied out of the code, what's there now.
But what Jesse's saying is if that's okay in all the other districts to get a special permit, if that protects the neighbors, is what Jesse's saying, then I'll loosen it up in downtown and say, you know, you can have an accessory apartment downtown by right.
Yeah.
I think that's where you were going, right?
That is exactly where I'm going. I mean, we have a chief zoning officer, building inspection process that would protect, you know, the integrity of the living unit and protect the neighbors, in my opinion, to a reasonable extent. And to make somebody go in front of the ZBA for a special permit for these things, to me, is unnecessarily onerous. And then the third thing, and this is the biggie for me, is back to the paragraph Don was just referencing at the bottom, paragraph 5, affordable housing. In any multifamily or mixed-use building with 8 or more units, so I would reduce that to 4 or more units, at least 12.5% of the units, I would reduce that to, or increase that to 25%. Or so basically, I would advocate that we have at least one affordable unit in any multifamily or mixed use with 4 or more residential units. And that's it for me.
Any other board member? You can go after Karina if you think of something. You ready, Karina?
Okay. If you go to page 2,
Would you mind just scrolling? Yeah, thanks.
page 2 is part 2 at the top of the page. Keep going down right there. See where it says K, downtown district, referred to as DD? It's not clear. They say add the following new district, and the last district would be M. The letter M. It's not clear if they want to insert it as K and then have the following letters follow the, you know, change the districts after the downtown district. Or did they want the K, or did they want to keep the K to follow the BV district? So if you use it, if you use K, the other 3 or 4 that follow that have to be changed. Otherwise, if it goes to the end of the list, it's an M. Just a note that I wanted to review with them.
No, Karina. Oh, I see.
See, you're in 174-3?
Yeah, districts enumerated.
Yeah. So it lists the districts.
But
And
you're
if-
gonna, we're adding a district, but I thought somewhere else. 74-3.
Yeah, so if they wanted to have it as K, it looks like they wanted to put it after J, village business districts. But they didn't specify that K and L would then be updated to follow consecutively. So I didn't know if that was their intent or if they just didn't realize, M would be the last one if they added there. It would make sense to put it after Village Business District.
So Lisa just wrote in the question and answer, the others were changed in part 2 to L and M.
That was the intent.
Yes.
Okay, so keep the K. Others following are now L and M. Okay, clear enough. Okay, if you go down to,
But
and then,
we have to, if we're gonna revise 174-3, we have to say, that we're making K downtown district and we're making business highway district L and wireless M. Otherwise, we'll have two Ks.
yeah, that was my point. Change other two.
But this warrant article has to add the K, add a new K and relabel the other two. Has to say that.
Yes,
Okay.
okay. Of course, these should be justified. Some of the formatting to match the formatting in the code, as well as some language in those boxes. You have to be consistent what article of the code it's under and all that, but that's just formatting. Under number 3, down 174-8.12, so part 4, A3. See, it says professional or business office or bank, but not including a medical or dental office. So in the BV, it states that's up to, I was wondering if there was a quick answer to why medical and dental offices were not included. I mean, are not included in this, if anybody recalled, just a question for thought.
I looked at that and I thought I found it somewhere else that said by special permit, medical and dental, because
Yes, after.
because an allowed use would be a veterinarian or animal hospital, and it seemed like, in this district, it's okay to treat animals, but not humans. But then I thought somewhere else it talked about medical and dental by special permit.
Well, the veterinarian animal hospital is a permitted use by special permit from the planning board. I
I
just,
think
you're right, yeah.
Judy said that the medical and dental generate more traffic, which is why it was pushed to the special permit. And more parking or something.
okay.
That was brought up at the joint meeting.
So it is, oh yeah, there it is, medical and dental. Okay, so it was pushed forward. So I made that note and then I didn't go back and erase that after I looked at that. Okay. On number 4, custom manufacturing of custom goods sold primarily on the premises such as woodworking shop for artisan or craftsperson or bakery. The prior sentence in the current code had a limit the number of people engaged in manufacturing operation to 4. So this particular line doesn't limit it to 4 people engaged in the manufacturing operation. It left it open-ended because in the business village district, it restricted it to 4 per special permit by the planning board, just FYI. So that left it open.
What do we care how many people work there, and how they work there? I mean, if you have 4 in the morning and then they go home and 4 in the afternoon come in, you got more car trips, but we're starting to get into,
Okay.
personnel issues.
Right. And I'm just pointing out that in the code previously, it said, it does say it limits it, just so you know. Number 6, art gallery. It's a little bit redundant here because art gallery is a use permitted in residential RA and RB in number 1. So if you look at all uses permitted in the residential districts, RA, RB under item 1 here, and if you go and look under RA and RB, art gallery is already in there. So that might be redundant, just something to double check.
Going back to what Marnie says, keep it simple,
Okay.
right? So get it
Yeah.
out of there.
Okay. In part B of this section, permitted uses up to a maximum of 3,000 square feet per establishment. The term establishment, does that mean the building, the use, the site? When I read it, it confused me a little bit. I tried to read further and get more clarity because it'll say like a food service establishment in number 2, but what does establishment mean?
I
Maybe
think the intent was the business.
So one business is a ice cream shop, the other business is a sandwich shop.
so you could have 3,000 square feet of one type and 3,000 square feet of another type of business.
Looks that way.
And is that the intent? Permitted uses of per establishment. Just making sure that makes sense.
Karina, can you just walk me through that? I like what your question is. I don't know if I'm following it.
So under part B, it says permitted uses up to a maximum of 3,000 square feet per establishment. So then I look down and it says retail sales. So if someone comes to me and they say, oh, well, I have 4 establishments, what does that mean? Does it mean 4 different types of business? In other words, see under number 2, it says ice cream shop, sandwich shop, other specialty food service establishment. Should be an S there. Serving, walking.
So it's
I'm
the
just not sure what it's
definition
that.
that we just are really trying to refine, so it's clear to us when we're interpreting this.
Correct.
Okay.
It wasn't clear to me, and I have people ask me questions like this every day. They go in the code and they say, well, what does that mean? And I'm not sure. I think, if I studied a little more and researched it, I could probably figure something out, but
Maybe establishment is something we put up top with like facade in the definition pieces.
Would the building inspector have a definition of establishment? You would think maybe she would have that in the building code. That might be because she's the one that would be interpreting what an establishment is, I guess, how many are
right.
allowed.
So we can
They
get
might-
clarification.
Okay.
That might be a place to look, would be the building commissioner.
Because it makes a difference. If someone says, well, I get up to 3,000 square feet, is that per site? What would it, well, it would say site, per business, per use. Okay,
Wouldn't you think that would be like just per commercial unit?
You would think so.
but then someone might say, well, I have ice cream and a sandwich shop in the same place. I got an ice cream counter over here, but I make,
Donuts over there.
yeah, like
So
Zeddy's
now I
and
get
Westall.
6,000. Now I get
Yeah.
6,000 square feet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, just food for thought. And then under B1, retail sales, should that be retail sales and services, or was it specifically left just for retail sales? I'm assuming they left and services off intentionally.
So a retail service would be like a where you bring your smartphone to, it crashes or something, or you bring your computer, they might not sell anything, but they service it.
Computer repair place or something like that.
Yeah, or even like the nail salon downtown.
Cobbler, yeah.
So was that left out intentionally, or is that something that should be in there?
Sounds
And
like it should be in there.
So we'll get clarification on that.
So they do clarify in that section 4 under there, it talks about personal services.
But that
So
doesn't
maybe
include,
it is that, right, so it's that service associate, that non-personal services maybe is what you.
Right,
would
like
add.
that. Yeah,
having them download a software to your laptop or something.
okay.
Well, isn't that covered above that though? In section A, professional or business office or bank, wait. I thought I could have sworn it said professional services. Maybe I'm seeing things. Sorry. I thought it said professional services above that. Maybe I
It
missed
does,
Yeah.
but that's under section A, which we're talking
Okay.
now about permitted uses for 3,000 square feet.
Got it. Thank you. Sorry.
Okay, my next comment was, same thing, under C1, the word establishment. Right underneath the highlighted letter C, number 1, again, it references establishment. I thought that just should be, what is establishment? Number 2 says mixed-use development that includes a use requiring a special permit. I think that refers to what's listed in RA and RB for special permit. So that's probably self-explanatory, unless somebody else found that confusing.
Well, wouldn't that also include lid? A use requiring a special permit. If we have a auto repair shop like we did on Route 9 and they had to do lid. Permitted uses by special permit from the planning board are as follows. And then it says mixed use maybe that my example was bad, but if there's another use in other sections that require a special permit from the planning board, like lid, they got to get a special permit.
Well, I think what that is if you have a mixed use that has an allowable use and then it has a use that requires a special permit, then you will require a special permit. But I have a question on the mixed use development. If we're discussing that now, if I should
Are you-
ask that now or.
Are you talking about C2?
I'm talking about A2 and C2.
It's up to you, Karina.
Oh, sure, because it might help clarify, because I was going back and forth on those same 2 myself. So go
So-
ahead.
The way I read this, it has mixed use development under a by right use. If provided each use in the development is either under A or B. But the definition of mixed use is residential and non-residential, but there are no allowed residential uses under A or B. So I don't, the way I read this, mixed use is all by special permit because the residential uses are by special permit. Unless I'm reading it wrong.
think you have to say that one more time.
Okay, so under the definition of mixed use,
Yes,
it includes both residential and non-residential uses in a single structure. So you have, in order to be mixed use, it needs residential and non-residential. And then you get to the permitted uses, 174-8.12, 2, mixed use
A2.
development,
yep,
provided that each use in the development is permitted under this section, either A or B, but there
which
are
is right
no,
here. Yep,
there are no residential uses under those.
it does say all uses permitted. See number 1, right? Wouldn't it reflect back to all uses permitted in the residential districts RA and RB? Right above it, right?
Which are like a single family house?
Which is,
Like there are no, well, there's no multi-family under Res A or Res B under
there is under the,
under by right.
oh,
there's
that's right.
special
it's
permits.
special permit. So that's where that next page C2 talks about mixed use development includes a use requiring a special permit. So
Right,
I
so
think they
my-
might capture it there.
So my question is
Mhm.
mixed use development a by right use? The way I read it, they're all special permits because there's no allowed use, no allowed residential use. There's no by right residential use.
Other than the single family home.
Right, which wouldn't fit the, you're not going to put a single family home on top of a ice cream shop.
Which defeats the entire purpose of the,
Which defeats
Rewriting
the
of the
purpose
district.
of the bylaw.
yeah.
So either that needs to come out and they're all by special permit, or you need to put multifamily under by right, but I wouldn't allow 12 units by right.
It's a great
So-
point.
Okay, yeah, this is where it gets confused. So it's A2 that needs to be defined better so that it includes,
There needs to be a residential use that's allowed. So maybe multifamily housing, if within a mixed use development, up to 4 units or something should be there as a by right use, if we want by right mixed use.
so maybe multi-unit up to 4 units.
I just threw a number out there. I don't know
Yeah,
if
but
that's
for
the number.
example. All right, that's gonna need some thinking. Let's see.
I think we should leave it alone because it's perfect government. It says you can do something, but you really can't.
And it puts you in a goal loop where you never get out,
It's going around and around.
stuck forever.
Good catch, Mimi.
Yeah, good catch. Okay.
I do love my zoning.
You're good at it. Okay, so just to get back, we were at C2, mixed use development.
Yep.
And that's where I was struggling too, because I thought under that they should give examples or spell it out under that C2. Okay, mixed use development that includes a use requiring a special permit. They should either reference something or put a little list there of what those things are to just be crystal clear. Okay, then C4, veterinarian animal hospital. That is already included under 2, requiring a special permit, mixed use that includes a use requiring a special permit. Never mind, that was my own note. But for some reason they removed dog kennel, and that's probably by design because you don't want a dog kennel in downtown. Okay, just making
Yep.
sure.
Oh, that's right. I mean, we go through this all the time with the difference between a hospital and a clinic. A hospital is 24/7, so you'd have dogs sleeping there, you'd have staff there, all night,
Mhm.
and a clinic is just a day operation. So we should get that cleared up I know the terms are often considered the same, but they're not. So if they intend to have a 24/7 animal hospital downtown, they should say so. And if it's just a clinic, then we should change the word to clinic.
Okay. Clarify. Okay, and then under F, right there, development standards are as follows. And it has 1, 2, 3, minimum, minimum, minimum. The 1, 2, 3, front, rear, and side should be A, B, C. So that you're not saying F1, 1, it gets confusing. So that's just a formatting issue.
And those would be small letters.
Yeah, small letters.
Okay.
And then, under number 5, minimum landscape open space, 20%. At least 50% of the landscaped open space shall be contiguous and located between the front building line and the front lot line unless the planning board approves a different placement of the open space. So is that saying you need 20% open space and at least 50% of the landscaped open space shall be contiguous? So 10% has to be contiguous and located in the front. That's what that means. Okay, got it.
Since you just raised that, Karina, just a quick question on open space. Is
Mhm.
that the definition of open space as we use open space, that it's usually not landscaped? And should we define it or use a different term? Is there confusion there?
There is, you're right, Marnie. It should be
Yeah,
a
that's
different
right.
term. It should be
Oh.
green space or something. Good catch.
That's a good one. Yep, green space.
This is the part where Marnie says, I love my zoning.
I'm not as good as Zonia as Mimi is. I'll get there.
None of us are.
Okay, under number 7, right there, minimum facade build out. I'm just a little confused on what that means. Facade build out, is that, I looked it up and it appears to be like if you put like a patio or a porch roof over the front of the building. Is that what that means? Minimum facade build out. Minimum facade build out.
Yeah, I didn't understand this. And I asked, and even after Judy explained it, I still didn't.
Does it mean?
There's actually similar terms in the design guidelines that seem to be architectural words or phrases. And since none of us are architects, we might need some help with that.
Oh, yeah.
Not just that, I agree, but some of the terms in the design guidelines need to be explained. I know, I'm pretty confident that none of the 5 current planning board members would know what some of those things mean.
Yeah, there were some words there I hadn't seen before in the design guideline. They were architectural. So we could get clarification on facade build out. So it's crystal clear, because what are they saying? 50 to 80 feet of the frontage. 50 to 80 feet of frontage. So if you have 50 feet, if you have 80 feet of frontage, you can have a build out up to 60%. Maybe that means the front of your building can take up 60% if they mean facade as only the front. It's just not clear to me. So maybe clarify that. Then down to, let's see, number 9, residential dwellings. It says single family or 2-family dwellings in the downtown district shall comply with RB district standards. And I was wondering, I thought there were 3 and 4 families in that area already existing. Aren't there a couple of 3 families, or someone has a 3 unit, or I could be wrong.
We'll find out that in the public hearing, I guess. Ask Mr. Sabelli to look that up for us.
Well, I think that's if someone wants to build a single family or 2 family, and that's in the code right now. In the downtown, in the Village Business District Code now.
So anything over that would be pre-existing non-conforming?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Can I just back up again? Sorry, I just was looking at our town code. And so in our town code in section 174-11 signs, we actually have a definition facade of the business establishment.
Oh,
And it states that portion of the building wall facing a street or containing a public entrance, which corresponds to the height and width of the interior space rented or owned by the tenant of the business establishment. So I think we have to be careful on how we define facade, because you can't have 2 different definitions in our code. And if that applies to this, or if they were thinking something different on the facade.
clarify. Okay.
Well, I think you're right, Marnie, but if we wanted to have a different definition for just the downtown district, we could.
Okay.
Because, no, you're right. Because we're modifying 174-2, which is definitions for the whole zoning code. So if we wanted to have a different definition for facade just for the downtown district, we'd have to put that definition in under 174-8.12.
And maybe call it downtown facade build out. Like just add another adjective to make it crystal clear. Okay. Almost done. Let's see here, F, G, H, clarified. Okay, under H4, see there's a reference in the first sentence, the maximum front setback in section G4. I think it should be F4. F4 refers to right there. Stop a little bit down, F, yeah, maximum front setback. So that's F4. So H4 should say maximum front setback in section F4, right?
Yeah, because there's no such thing as G4.
Okay. And just one last page. Under part 5. And it reads, in the downtown district, major site plan approval shall be by special permit from the planning board for any use requiring a special permit. Okay. And then it says, in such cases, the procedural requirements and design criteria of those sections shall apply. So basically, it reverts back to BV district criteria, but the threshold is 3,000 square feet instead of 2. Am I reading that wrong? And you don't have to answer it now. It's just a question maybe during public hearing. That as I read that and I was kind of going through the circle of it, essentially it's taking the 2,000 square feet that made you was the threshold for a special permit in the BV district, and now making it 3,000 square feet.
Or 3,000 per establishment. or over 3,000 actually,
Yeah,
or any of the other uses that require a special permit.
yeah, it just, that sentence is just, like, it could be clearer, like,
Yeah.
you know, the people who come in don't read these every day, and they'll ask us, and I read it every day, and it's still kind of fuzzy, so I interpret it as, let me see, here, I wrote it down. Is there a conflict with major site plan approval, or just 3,000 square feet revert to BV district? I just can't see it without my other magnifying glass. Is there a conflict with major site plan approval threshold, or just means greater than 3,000 square feet, which reverts back to BV district criteria? So it was a little fuzzy to me there, but I thought that's what it would be, that it's really just shifting it to 3,000 square feet instead of 2,000. But I'll have to look at that deeper. If anyone has any thoughts on that, let me know.
Yeah, that is fuzzy.
Yeah, so when I was actually looking at all this, and I could go back and forth with some time and try and interpret it, that's what I felt, there may be a conflict there, but, okay, and then lastly, number, F3. Restaurants, way at the end of the document, Sarah. I mean, yeah, oh, well, I don't know why it says F3, F there. So that's confusing. See, under part 6, it says
Yeah, I think we're all set.
F. Oh, that's parking, that's right, because parking and loading. This is like an excerpt of the parking and loading regulations. So if you go to number 3, restaurants and other places serving food or beverages, 1 space for each 4 seats. What about the employee? Is that counted in with the 4 seats, or should there be like +1 for the employee? Like there's another parking criteria that says that. Let me just look up. So under zoning code 174-12, parking and loading regulations, part E, where it lists all the different modes of calculating the use to the parking, under restaurants and other places serving food, it had not just for seats, but also for an employee. So I didn't know if that was oversight or if they just figured the size was smaller, so 4 seats would incorporate an employee. But I thought it was missing an employee, a parking space for an employee. And then in number 4, mixed use development, 1 space per dwelling unit and 1 space per 300 square feet of non-residential use. I didn't know if and this is another public hearing question, if 1 space is enough for a dwelling unit. If there's a couple that live there and they have each a car, where does the other one park? If they only give the minimum. There'd be overflow parking into the business parking space. And that's all I had. Sorry.
Actually, I had one that I missed, and it was in F2, where it says bed and breakfast. 1 space for each guest room, plus 2 spaces for the owners and operators of the premises. And I know bed and breakfast is supposed to be owner occupied. So the 2 spaces for the owners is consistent. But is it 2 spaces and another 2 spaces for the operators? And I'm not sure if we use the term operators anywhere else. Isn't it assumed that the owners are the operators? Isn't that why it's owner occupied?
Well, let's see, bed and breakfast is a definition on the very beginning page. Bed and breakfast is an establishment on owner occupied property offering transient lodging accommodations to the general public with not more than 4 guest rooms and food service limited to breakfast for guests.
So it doesn't say operators. And so, but that's a problem that we don't know what an operator is, but also, is it 2 spaces for the owners and then 2 more for the operators? Or is it 2 for both the owners and operators?
Okay. Got it. There's a few questions. That's all
Anyone
I
else?
have.
Anyone else got anything? That's,
Hey, Don.
yeah,
Don,
just,
you brought up the lid before. Are we to assume that that's the same triggers for lid as everywhere else in the code?
I think so, because I don't remember what section, but it said anything that required a special permit in other sections of the code requires a special permit in this section. And the lid came to mind for me because it's required in the other sections. In 174-10. So
I think we just want to be sure that we're not inadvertently waiving lid anywhere in here.
Well, I think it's part of that sentence that we were in part 5, the part about in the downtown district, major site plan approval shall be by special permit from the planning board for any use requiring a special permit. So in such cases, the procedural requirements and decision criteria of 174-9 and 74-10, 10A1 through C. And I think lid's in there. I mean, if you're going to build a building or an addition that triggers site plan, then you're subject to lid, the way I read that, which is a special permit under 174-10. I hope I answered your question. I don't know.
Yeah, yes, sir. Thank you.
Anyone else?
So just say that one more time, Don, because a lid is triggered applicabilities, any activity subject to major plan review, and any activity that will result in soil disturbance of 1 acre or more. And you're saying that under part 5 of the draft bylaw here, that in the downtown district, major site plan approval shall be by special permit from the planning board for any use requiring a special permit.
So uses, if I got this right, virtually any use that triggers the lid requirement, which is the acre.
Or major, or major site review, major plan review, which it says there.
So just by being in the downtown district doesn't get you out of lid. You have to do lid if you reach the lid thresholds.
Right. So that covers it there.
I think so. Sarah, anybody out there?
I think, Karina, I think that section could be clearer, that 174-10.2. It is a little squishy there.
Yeah, I put a note, clarify intent, and then a little side note about the lid if required by the lid threshold, kind of for intent. Okay. That was good.
So, no new hands raised and no new questions in the chat at this point.
Well, the next question might raise some hands, which is, we've identified quite a bit of work here that needs to be done, and it's a blend of maybe a few internal quick fixes and some external research that's going to take a little bit of time. And I don't know, I guess I'll defer to the board and to our planning department, how much of this, if any of it, we want to take on in-house, or if we want to push this back to the EDC to get these answers. Or I think, as Marnie was saying, there was a collaboration of people, and who wants to take the lead on working on these things, or dividing them up into assignments for different people that may know more about one thing than the other. So how do we want to get this fixed up? Who's going to do the work?
Can I, my opinion is that we were provided this document in this format, and at this time, maybe we draft comments into the document of where we had concerns, clarification, and formatting edits, and then submit it back to the Board of Selectmen, EDC, through either Lisa Bracchio, who was the kind of the representative. Everything goes through, I could be wrong, and then let them address these as, this is what the planning board had for comments already, the planning board and planning department.
That's the way I would think it would go. I see there's a raised hand now.
I don't,
Oh, there's a question and answer.
yeah, there's been a few.
Oh, maybe, okay, I guess you have to click on raise hand.
Yes.
That's how much I know. Okay.
But I mean, Lisa and Sam are both here, so I can just kind of put them on the spot a little bit.
Well, no, you don't have to put them on the spot. What Karina just suggested was that you guys will take these, mark it all up using the software that shows additions, deletions, and able to put notes on the sides, right?
Mhm.
And then send it back to Lisa and Julie,
Mhm.
and probably Mark Purple, and say, and remind them that the public hearing starts on February 22nd. All these answers don't have to be done when we open the public hearing, but we should try to address as many as we can before we have to submit the document to the town administrator for the final look at the warrant, knowing that whatever we submit may still have open items or need clarification, which we can continue to work on as the public hearing remains open. Does that sound right?
Sounds
Yeah.
good.
So you say we make that, we draft the edits into the comments from this meeting into the document and provide it back.
Yes. And
Okay.
and we can tell that some of the edits are deleting an S or adding the word rental, or which
Formatting.
are pretty easy in the formatting, but then that part 5, everyone seems to have a desire to have that first sentence in that part 5 clarified, cleaned up, even if it results in several sentences. And we don't know how necessarily, or maybe we do, to clean that up. Send it all back, and that'll open up some dialogue as to how and when it might get done. But this is very similar to the way we went through the zoning code in the ZAC. We had the drafts, different drafts of different sections, went through it word by word, page by page, and got there. With this, it's
So-
only, go ahead.
So this will be sent back to Lisa, because Lisa in the question and answer space on the Zoom meeting here just now said, we will work on getting you answers and clarifications from Judy Barrett.
Oh, good. Okay.
So it's agreed, we'll provide this back to Lisa, and she will give it to the people who are supposed to get it and work on it there, whether it's a clarification. And we'll fix the little format things if that's okay, like you said.
Sure. That's up to you, Karina, but it sounds like we've done some work tonight.
Mhm.
We have a parallel track here with the public hearing coming up. And the other track would be to have people working on fixing this up a little. And we have a next step, which is for you guys to mark this up and send it to Lisa, and she's committed to a follow-up step, which would be to give it to Judy. At some point, we'll get it back, go over it again.
Okay. Seems pretty productive.
We've been on almost 2 hours. Does anybody, if we're all done with that, does anybody want to say anything about the design guidelines or save that for later?
Later.
Later.
Mr. Mills,
Motion to adjourn.
Second, but I just have one discussion item.
motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? Mr. Stein?
There's a forum on Feb 16. Are we going to post a meeting for that, or are we going to post a meeting for that? I'm asking.
It's at
February
the Board of
16th.
Selectmen's, right. It's the Board of Selectmen starts at 6:30, right, Sarah? And the
Yes.
forum is at, what time is the forum at? I have it right here, hold on.
7:30.
Are
So
we
it's just an
invited?
administrative question in case we had a quorum, Don.
I'm wondering, are we invited?
I think everyone's invited,
Yes.
Even us?
believe it or not.
So maybe we should post that then. Good idea, Jesse.
But if like with this meeting, right? If we're all just participants on the side, we're not talking to each other or anything. Or communicating, I mean, I don't know how that works.
Well, again, and it sounds like Lisa has, by her note a minute ago, agrees with at least my understanding that we don't own this document. The owner of this document is the EDC, and we are trying to wrap our arms around it and help it along. But the EDC, I think, was the lead on putting the necessary people together to create this document as it stands now. Is that right, Marnie? Do you feel that way? So, I mean, we have to have, a belly button. We have to have somebody, who's responsible? Who's the owner? So we can go to that person. And that person might not have anything to do with the document or drafting it, but may be the person that's in charge of other people doing that. And to me, that's the EDC, how they figure that out. It's not our document, and it was made clear today with my discussion with Lisa that it's not the Board of Selectmen's document, even though we're all trying to work together to see where it goes and try to make it work. Did I answer your question, Andrew? I don't think I did.
But my point was that if we're all on the same Zoom meeting, unless we're all brought in together, we can't even talk. Right? So I don't know if we need to post a meeting for that, right? If we're
We
all
should. Yes, we should.
Just to be safe and
Sure.
it doesn't hurt. And say you're in the chat and you're typing something in the chat and then Dawn reads it and then Mimi answers it in the chat, then that's deliberation almost between three people. It could be considered that, just in case.
Well, I can't make it. I have a very important birthday to celebrate on the 16th. That's
Yours? Oh.
not
That makes it really important.
exactly.
And don't forget Valentine's Day.
I never can.
So just to yeah, go ahead, Sarah.
Lisa just wrote one more thing in the chat. Just, she said, for clarification, the design document is not a Board of Selectmen document.
I think I just said that. So I'm glad she reinforced that. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. This is a product of the EDC and might be a real good improvement. We just keep working together and moving it along. See where it takes us.
All right, just for clarity, the public forum for the Downtown District Initiative is with the Board of Selectmen on February 16th at 7:30 p.m. during their regular scheduled meeting. And there is a document on the website with that talks about the forum and what they'll be discussing. So if anyone
Okay.
wants to look at it. Okay.
Any more discussion on the motion? None of which we just had. All in favor for adjournment? Morris, yes.
Mills, yes.
Stein, yes?
Latrell, yes?
Houlihan, yes.
Thank you.